Cleveland, 1925. The city hums with industry, smoke curling from factory chimneys, and the rhythmic clatter of trains carrying coal, steel, and corn. But beneath the hum of progress, another world thrives, one of shadows, secrecy, and violence. The streets whisper the names of men who rule not through law but through fear. Corn sugar, seemingly innocuous, a key ingredient for bootleg whiskey, has become the most valuable commodity in the city. Rival factions fight for control, and every shipment is a potential death sentence. Somewhere in a dimly lit warehouse near the flats, Joseph Big Joe Lonardo counts barrels of sugar. Outside, men with guns watch every movement, every face, every shadow. The stakes are higher than ever. A misstep could mean fire, blood, or betrayal. From the factories to the speakeasies, every corner of Cleveland feels the tension. Streets once safe now echo with whispers of bombings, gunshots, and vanished men. This is the story of the Corn Sugar War. Bootleggers turned soldiers, allies turned enemies, and a city caught in the crossfire of its own criminal ambition. The question is simple: who will survive, who will fall, and who will control Cleveland's deadly underworld? Chapter 1. The Spark That Ignited the Streets. Cleveland, Spring 1925. The flats are alive with the clamor of industry, but beneath the clatter of factories a more dangerous rhythm beats. The hum of trucks carrying barrels of corn sugar, gold to bootleggers, deadly to those who stand in the way. Joseph Big Joe Lonardo, Cleveland's most powerful bootlegger, leans over a crate of sugar in his warehouse. He checks the seals, counting barrels like a general surveying troops. "This is the life," he mutters. "Control the sugar, control the whiskey, control the city." A young lieutenant approaches nervously. "Joe, there's word from the rival crew. They're moving against our shipments tonight." Lonardo straightens, eyes narrowing. "Which crew?" "The Porrello boys. They're not just taking sugar, they want territory. They're sending men to the docks." Lonardo pauses. "So it begins," he says quietly. "They want war. We give them war. No mercy. Remember that." Hours later, under the cover of night, the Porrello gang moves silently along the docks. Men with fedoras and leather gloves unload crates, scanning the darkness for Lonardo's enforcers. One of their lieutenants, Angelo Porrello, whispers, "Tonight we take what's ours. No hesitation. Big Joe thinks he owns Cleveland. Let's show him otherwise." The first shots ring out near the warehouse, muffled by the hum of the river. Lonardo's men respond with precise fire, forcing the intruders to retreat. Chaos erupts. Barrels are overturned, sugar spills across the dock, and the river reflects flashes of gunfire. A bystander hides behind crates. "Jesus, it's like the city's on fire," he mutters, and nobody even knows why. Inside the warehouse, Lonardo paces. "They'll try again," he says, "and when they do, I want every man ready. No mistakes. The first blood is ours to spill." One enforcer, Frank Milano, nods. "We've got the docks covered. Porrellos don't stand a chance." But as dawn breaks, the city awakens to news. An explosion rocks a rival gang's warehouse on the east side. Investigators arrive to find shattered crates, scorched barrels of sugar, and graffiti marking territory. Angelo Porrello surveys the damage. "They think this scares us," he growls. "They've just made it personal. They want war. They'll get it." The streets of Cleveland become a chessboard. Allies form and fracture overnight. Every shipment of sugar carries risk. Every warehouse could be the scene of an ambush, and every man in the trade must choose loyalty or death. Lonardo convenes a meeting in a back room of a speakeasy. "The war has begun," he tells his captains. "Porrello thinks this is about barrels. It's about power. Control the sugar, and you control the whiskey, the streets, the lives of every man in Cleveland." Meanwhile, across the city, the Porrello gang plans their next strike. "Tonight we hit the docks again," Angelo says, slamming his fist on the table. "We take their sugar, we send a message. No one crosses the Porrellos." The first spark has ignited a conflagration. Cleveland, a city known for its industry and commerce, now becomes a battlefield. Streets, alleys, and warehouses turn into zones of war, and ordinary citizens begin to understand. In the shadows, men die over sugar, alcohol, and power. As night falls, the river reflects the flickering lights of the city, unaware of the deadly war raging along its banks. And somewhere in the darkness, Lonardo watches, ready to respond, knowing that the first blood has been shed. But the war is only beginning. Chapter 2. Territory and Betrayal, Cleveland, summer 1925. The city feels the tension in every alley, warehouse, and speakeasy. Barrels of corn sugar, once simply a commodity, have become symbols of power. Whoever controls the supply controls the city's whiskey trade, and both the Lonardo and Porrello factions are willing to kill for it. Joseph Big Joe Lonardo walks through the streets near the flats, flanked by his lieutenants Frank Milano and Peter D'Angelo. He surveys the docks where gangs unload sugar under flickering gaslights. Territory isn't given, Lonardo says, voice low but commanding. It's taken, and anyone who challenges us and won't live to tell the tale. Meanwhile, on the east side, Angelo Porrello meets with his inner circle. Maps are spread across a table, pins marking warehouses, docks, and known Lonardo routes. "We've tried subtlety," he says, scowling. "They don't listen. Tonight we make them respect us, take the docks, burn the shipments, make Big Joe feel the bite." A younger lieutenant, nervous, asks, "And if the men die?" Angelo's eyes flash with fury. "Then they die. That's the price of power. In this city, survival favors the ruthless." That night, the first coordinated strike unfolds. Porrello men plant explosives near a Lonardo-controlled warehouse. The blast shakes the building, sending barrels of sugar tumbling into the street. Gunfire erupts from surrounding buildings as Lonardo's men respond with precision. Frank Milano yells, "Cover the exits! Don't let a single man escape!" Angelo Porrello ducks behind crates, shouting orders, "Grab what you can, burn the rest. Tonight, they pay for every barrel they took." Smoke curls into the night sky. Civilians peer nervously from windows, unaware of the full scope of the battle. Streets smell of sugar, smoke, and gunpowder. Amid the chaos, betrayal emerges. One of Lonardo's trusted men, Salvatore Sally Greco, has been feeding information to Porrello. Greco's tip leads the Porrello men directly to the warehouse's hidden stock. Lonardo senses something is wrong. He confronts Greco quietly in the warehouse office. "You told them about the shipment," Lonardo says, voice like steel. "Why?" Greco swallows hard. I thought it would end the war faster. They promised protection, a cut of the profits." Lonardo's expression darkens. "Protection from me? You think anyone survives betrayal?" A single gunshot echoes. Greco slumps over, silence following the act. Loyalty, Lonardo reminds himself, is not negotiable. The Porrello faction, emboldened by their success, pushes further into Lonardo territory. Small ambushes along delivery routes escalate to full-blown attacks on warehouses and speakeasies. Every shipment becomes a potential battleground. Civilians begin to whisper about the corn sugar war. Some dodge the streets at night, some pretend nothing is happening, while others profit quietly from black market deals, aware that every alliance can shift in a heartbeat. In a dimly lit speakeasy, Lonardo gathers his captains. Maps, notes, and photographs are scattered across the table. "They've crossed the line," he says, tapping a finger on a map. "They think they can steal our sugar and our lives. We show them the cost of disrespect." Peter D'Angelo nods. "Tonight we take the east side, hit every warehouse, every shipment. Make sure they understand. This is our city." Milano adds, "And the men who betrayed us, the same rule applies. Loyalty first, survival second." As the night falls, the first major ambush unfolds. Lonardo men move silently through Porrello-controlled warehouses. Gunfire erupts. Explosions echo from barrels of spilled sugar, lighting the streets in fiery orange. Men scream. Smoke fills the alleys, and the city feels like a war zone. Angelo Porrello, caught off guard, barely escapes with a few men. "This isn't over," he hisses. Not by a long shot. By dawn, both factions lick their wounds. Dead lieutenants, destroyed warehouses, and burned shipments litter Cleveland's streets. Civilians whisper of the bloodshed, the daring, and the betrayal that has reshaped the city. Lonardo surveys the damage, expression grim. They learned a lesson tonight, he mutters, and the war has only just begun. The first true battle for Cleveland's corn sugar trade ends, but every man knows the next clash will be deadlier. Territory and betrayal have become the currency of survival, and the streets of Cleveland will never be safe again. Chapter 3. The Price of Blood. Cleveland, Autumn 1925. The city feels smaller at night. Every alley, warehouse, and dock seems a potential battlefield. The corn sugar war has escalated beyond theft and sabotage. It is now a war of assassinations, terror, and control. The streets whisper of men who vanish, warehouses that explode, and blood spilled over barrels of sugar. Joseph Big Joe Lonardo walks along the riverfront, his overcoat tight against the chill. Beside him, Frank Milano counts the men patrolling the docks. They think they can hit us at every turn, Milano says. We need a lesson they won't forget. Lonardo stops, gazing at the dark water. Every man lost is a message, he mutters. Every shipment burned is a warning. They'll learn, or they die. On the east side, Angelo Porrello paces a warehouse. Maps are spread across tables. We've lost men, he growls. They hit too hard, but we hit back. Tonight we strike harder. No hesitation, no mercy. A younger lieutenant, trembling, asks, "And if the police get involved?" Angelo laughs, sharp and bitter. The police, they watch from a distance. They don't control the streets. We do. And tonight the streets remember who rules. The first major assassination unfolds. Santino Ricci, a trusted Lonardo lieutenant, is ambushed outside a speakeasy. Gunmen fire from alleys, and Ricci falls, clutching a crimson-stained overcoat. The shooters vanish into the night, leaving a trail of panic. News spreads quickly. Civilians whisper about the blood price being exacted over sugar barrels. Shopkeepers board windows. Families avoid streets at night, and the city begins to understand. No corner is safe. Inside Lonardo's headquarters, the men react with fury. Ricci's death won't go unanswered, Milano says, slamming a hand on the table. Porrello will pay for every bullet. Lonardo nods, expression unreadable. Gather the men. Strike tonight. Target their warehouses, their shipments, their lieutenants. And make sure they know. Betrayal carries a cost they cannot pay. Later that night, under a moonless sky, Lonardo's men move silently. Explosives are planted near Porrello-controlled sugar caches. Gunfire erupts from shadowed corners. Crates explode in fiery blasts, sending sugar raining onto the streets like deadly snow. Peter D'Angelo yells, "Take the men down! Every shipment, every soldier! Tonight we show them the price of crossing us." Angelo Porrello barely escapes, one hand shielding his face from flying debris. "This war, it's madness," he mutters. "But I'll survive, and they'll regret every barrel they burned." Civilian life deteriorates. Firefighters respond to warehouses in flames, police patrol the flats with tense unease, and ordinary Clevelanders whisper about gangs at war. Yet the true scope remains hidden. The violence is calculated, precise, a deadly chess game played with sugar barrels and human lives. In a hidden speakeasy, an informant whispers to a reporter, "They say it's about whiskey, but it's about control. They don't care about people. One wrong step, and you're gone." The streets, they belong to men with guns. Amid the chaos, betrayal continues to ripple through the factions. Lonardo discovers that one of his men had secretly negotiated with Porrello for a cut of the sugar profits. Without hesitation, Lonardo confronts him. "You thought you could cheat me," Lonardo says quietly. "Every man knows the rules. Loyalty or death." The traitor's protest dies in a single gunshot. Silence falls in the room, a stark reminder to all who serve. By the end of the month, the streets are littered with casualties, dead men, burned warehouses, and destroyed shipments. Every surviving member of both factions understands the rules. Power is measured in blood, Betrayal is fatal, and every barrel of sugar carries a deadly cost. Lonardo addresses his lieutenants, voice firm. The war has taken lives. It will take more. But we survive because we are ruthless, precise, and loyal, and anyone who forgets that will pay. The corn sugar war shows no signs of slowing. The stakes rise with every shipment, every ambush, and every betrayal. Cleveland has become a city of shadows, and in these shadows, only the cunning, ruthless, and loyal survive. The price of power is high, the streets are unforgiving, and every man now knows, in this war, blood is the only currency that matters. Chapter 4. Alliances in the Dark Winter, 1925. Cleveland streets are slick with rain and ice, reflecting dim gaslights that illuminate alleys where violence and secrecy thrive. The corn sugar war rages on, but now, both the Lonardo and Porrello factions understand one immutable truth. Outright warfare is costly, and survival sometimes demands temporary alliances, even with the unlikeliest partners. Joseph, Big Joe Lonardo, gathers his lieutenants in a dim warehouse near the flats. Crates of sugar line the walls, their contents a reminder of the empire they fight to protect. "We've lost men, and they've lost men," Lonardo says, his voice low but commanding. "But it's clear, this war can't be fought alone. We need allies, strategic truces. Sometimes survival is smarter than revenge." Frank Milano shifts uncomfortably. "You mean, talk to the Porrellos?" Lonardo fixes him with a stare. "Not talk, negotiate. For now, there are bigger threats. Rival crews from outside the city see our chaos as an opportunity. If we ignore them, we lose everything." Across the river, Angelo Porrello convenes his own council. Maps, photographs, and reports from informants litter a table. "We've hit them hard," he says, "but this war is draining men and resources. Maybe it's time to consider temporary alliances." A lieutenant hesitates. "With Lonardo? After Ricci and the warehouses?" Porrello slams his hand on the table. "We are not friends. We are pragmatic. Tonight, we unite against anyone who challenges Cleveland's sugar supply outside our city. Tomorrow, the war continues." The first covert meeting occurs in a nondescript speakeasy near downtown Cleveland. Neither faction trusts the other, yet both send representatives. Lonardo's eyes sweep the room as Porrello's men enter. Angelo Porrello nods curtly. "We're not friends," he says. "We're practical. Outside crews are stepping into our city. If we fight them together, we survive. If we fight each other, we die." Lonardo replies evenly. "Agreed. But this alliance is temporary. One mistake, one betrayal, and the war resumes, permanently." Both sides shake hands, the tension almost tangible. For one night the war is paused, but suspicion and hatred simmer just below the surface. The temporary truce proves useful immediately. Rival bootleggers from Pittsburgh attempt to hijack a shipment of sugar bound for Cleveland. Lonardo and Porrello men coordinate quickly, intercepting the shipment and sending a clear message. Cleveland's gangs may feud, but outsiders pay the highest price. Frank Milano laughs quietly as crates are secured. They thought they could take our sugar, and for one night, we showed them the cost of stepping in. Porrello, observing from a shadowed corner, adds, "Efficiency is a useful tool, even if it comes from the enemy. But remember, this truce ends at dawn." Even as alliances form, internal tensions threaten stability. Men from both sides resent sharing resources and coordinating strategy. A minor disagreement over territory escalates into a knife fight, reminding all parties that old grudges die slowly. Lonardo observes silently. "Every man knows his place," he mutters. "Loyalty is temporary, but discipline is forever." Meanwhile, civilians begin noticing the strange calm. Fewer explosions, fewer gunfights. Yet the streets are tense, the calm deceptive. Everyone senses that the war's pause is fragile, and the next betrayal could reignite bloodshed. The night ends with a quiet riverfront inspection. Lonardo and Porrello stand near the docks, watching sugar barrels move under the cover of darkness. Porrello mutters, almost to himself. For one night the city survives. Tomorrow, it's back to war. Lonardo nods. Let's make sure we're the last men standing when it does. In Cleveland, the war continues to shape the city. Alliances, even temporary ones, bring a precarious balance, giving both factions time to rebuild, strategize, and plot their next move. But in the shadows, everyone knows the truth. Betrayal is always around the corner, and the streets belong only to the ruthless. The corn-sugar war, for all its temporary truces, marches forward, and the price of survival rises with every barrel of sugar, every gunshot, and every broken allegiance. Chapter 5. Fire and Blood, Cleveland. Spring 1926. The city is alive with tension. Streets echo with the distant clatter of trains, but closer to the waterfront, explosions and gunfire ripple through alleys and warehouses. The temporary truces have shattered, replaced by an all-out war for control of the corn-sugar trade. The stakes are higher, the violence more calculated, and the bloodshed unavoidable. Joseph Big Joe Lonardo moves through the warehouse district with his most trusted lieutenants, Frank Milano and Peter D'Angelo. Smoke rises from a nearby building, the result of a deliberate Porrello attack on a shipment of sugar. Milano mutters, "They've crossed the line this time. Entire warehouses burned, men killed. They think they can scare us?" Lonardo pauses, surveying the destruction. "They can try," he says quietly. "But fire and blood will remind them who rules these streets." Across town, Angelo Porrello surveys the ruins of another warehouse. The smell of smoke and spilled sugar fills the air. His men cheer quietly as barrels of sugar smolder and crates are destroyed. "Tonight, we teach them fear," Porrello says. "No mercy, no hesitation. Every barrel, every man, sends a message." A lieutenant, nervous, asks, "And if the cops get involved?" Porrello laughs bitterly. "The cops are shadows in this city. They watch, they file reports, they take bribes. But the streets belong to men who have fire in their hands and blood on their conscience." That night, ambushes unfold with deadly precision. Lonardo's men plant explosives at Porrello-controlled docks. Gunfire erupts from shadowed corners as men scramble to protect shipments. Sparks fly, barrels explode, and smoke blots out the moonlight. Peter D'Angelo shouts over the chaos, "Hold your positions, every man counts. Tonight we show them the cost of stepping into our territory." Porrello, caught off guard, barely escapes with a handful of lieutenants. He mutters to himself, "They've escalated, but I will not falter, not now, not ever." The violence spreads to the heart of Cleveland. Civilians wake to shattered windows, burned warehouses, and news of dead gangsters scattered across the city. Shopkeepers board up storefronts, families avoid streets at night, and whispers of the corn-sugar war ripple through neighborhoods. Inside Lonardo's headquarters, men count the toll. "Men lost," Milano says, grim. "Warehouses destroyed, shipments gone, but they feel it too. They fear us." Lonardo nods. "Fear is currency, blood is investment, and tonight, we invested wisely." Betrayal continues to punctuate the war. One of Porrello's trusted men, Vincent DeLuca, secretly passes information to Lonardo. A shipment destined for Porrello-controlled docks is intercepted, barrels destroyed, and lieutenants eliminated. Porrello, furious, storms into a meeting with his inner circle. "Traitor," he screams. "One man's greed has cost us lives. We hunt him tonight, and make sure everyone else remembers the cost of disloyalty." The city descends further into chaos. Firefighters respond to burning warehouses, police patrol streets cautiously, and journalists report on the explosions while avoiding the true story. That Cleveland has become a battlefield for the bloodiest gang war the city has ever seen. In the shadows, Lonardo watches from a warehouse roof, cigarette glowing in the dark. "They think they can outlast us," he mutters. "But fire and blood belong to the ruthless." By the end of the spring, both factions are exhausted yet unyielding. Men lie dead, warehouses lie in ruins, and the corn-sugar trade teeters on a knife's edge. Survival demands loyalty, courage, and brutality. Cleveland has learned the harshest lesson of all. In this war, mercy is weakness, and only the cunning and ruthless prevail. Chapter 6. The Betrayal That Changed Everything, Cleveland, Summer 1926. The Corn Sugar War has escalated beyond rivalries and sabotage. The streets are now a theater of blood, and trust has become the rarest currency of all. Both the Lonardo and Porrello factions understand that one misstep, one misplaced loyalty, can mean death. Joseph Big Joe Lonardo walks through a burned warehouse, surveying the damage. Barrels of sugar are reduced to charred husks, walls scarred with bullets. "Every shipment we lose," he mutters, "teaches us who can't be trusted." Frank Milano leans against a scorched crate. "Joe, it's worse than ever. Men are talking. Someone inside our ranks is feeding the Porrellos information." Lonardo's eyes harden. "Then we find the snake. And when we do, he won't live to regret it." Meanwhile, Angelo Porrello celebrates a recent successful ambush with his lieutenants. Wine flows freely, and the streets outside are quiet. Deceptively so. But not all is secure. Vincent DeLuca, a trusted enforcer, secretly arranges meetings with Lonardo's men. He passes shipment schedules, warehouse locations, and patrol routines in exchange for promises of power and money once the war ends. Porrello senses something amiss. "Trust no man," he tells his lieutenants. "Even the closest allies can turn. Every man in this city has a price, and tonight we'll see who pays it." The betrayal comes to light in brutal fashion. A Lonardo convoy carrying a shipment of corn sugar is ambushed. Men are killed instantly, barrels destroyed, and chaos erupts across the docks. Evidence points directly to DeLuca. Lonardo confronts him in a dimly lit alley. "Vincent," he says softly, almost calm, "you thought you could cheat me?" DeLuca laughs nervously. I just wanted to survive." Lonardo's hand moves like lightning. A gunshot echoes. DeLuca collapses, and Lonardo turns to his men. "Let this be a lesson. Betrayal is death." Porrello, furious over the sudden losses and suspicious that one of his men has double-crossed him, orders a secret council. "The man responsible for the convoy attack is among us," he says. "We find him, or we all die. Loyalty is no longer assumed. It is demanded." The lieutenants begin a series of clandestine interrogations, setting traps and testing allegiances. Tension rises as men realize the war has become as much about trust as it has about sugar. The streets of Cleveland grow more dangerous with every passing day. Civilians whisper of explosions, fires, and sudden killings. Ordinary men and women are caught in the crossfire. Warehouse districts burn repeatedly, and the riverfront is littered with destroyed crates and shattered barrels. Frank Milano reports back to Lonardo. "Joe, the Porrellos are desperate. They'll push harder, take more risks, but so will we. And when they make a mistake, we end this war." Lonardo nods slowly. Patience, precision, and fire. That is how wars are won. Not with haste, but with cunning. And tonight, we prepare for the endgame. Betrayal has changed everything. Loyalties are tested, strategies shift, and both factions realize that the corn sugar war is no longer just about territory or profit. It is about survival. The next moves will be decisive. The next battle's brutal, and the price of miscalculation higher than ever. Cleveland has become a city where shadows rule, bullets write history, and men like Lonardo and Porrello dictate life and death. The war approaches its climax, and every man knows. The next betrayal may decide the victor and the vanquished. Chapter 7. The Last Stand, Cleveland, Autumn 1926. The war has reached its boiling point. Streets are scarred by explosions, warehouses lie in ruin, and the survivors of both factions move like predators through the night. The corn sugar war is no longer a series of skirmishes. It is now a battle for absolute dominance. Joseph Big Joe Lonardo convenes his lieutenants in a hidden warehouse. Maps, photographs, and shipment logs litter the table. The men are tired, bloodied, but resolute. Milano leans forward, voice tense. "Joe, the Porrellos are pushing everything tonight. They're hitting multiple warehouses, moving shipments simultaneously. They want to crush us in one strike." Lonardo nods. "Then we meet them head on. Tonight, the streets will remember who rules. No hesitation, no mercy. Every man, every barrel, every shot counts. On the east side, Angelo Porrello addresses his men with equal fervor. Tonight we take Cleveland. Strike fast, strike hard, and strike first. The Lonardos think they can hold us back. They are wrong. Every warehouse burned, every shipment captured, every man eliminated. That is how we win. Porrello's lieutenant whispers, "And the civilians?" Porrello's eyes flash cold. Collateral damage is part of the cost. We fight for power, not pity. As night falls, the first strikes erupt simultaneously across the city. Explosions rock warehouses on both sides, and gunfire echoes through dark alleys. Men dash between buildings, exchanging fire. Barrels of sugar ignite, creating firestorms that illuminate the chaos in orange and red. Frank Milano shouts to his men, "Hold the docks. Protect the shipments. Every inch counts." Peter D'Angelo fires into shadowed alleys. "Move forward. Don't let them take anything." Porrello's men launch ambushes along Lonardo's supply lines. Angelo Porrello personally supervises a raid on a heavily guarded warehouse. Shots ring out, men fall, and the building is set ablaze. "Take everything," Porrello commands. "Leave nothing behind for Big Joe." Lonardo, informed of the attack, rallies his men. "Counterstrike now," he bellows. Explosives are planted, warehouses torched, and gunfire erupts in synchronized chaos. The city is consumed by the inferno of war. Civilians flee as the streets become a battlefield. Shouts, screams, and the sound of shattering crates echo into the night. Smoke chokes alleyways, fire reflects off the river, and the smell of gunpowder mixes with burning sugar. Amid the chaos, betrayal surfaces once more. A Porrello lieutenant, disillusioned by the mounting death toll, secretly contacts Lonardo with information about a major warehouse full of sugar and cash. Lonardo's men exploit the tip, capturing the stock and killing those inside. Porrello, enraged and shocked, realizes the war is tipping. "They've outplayed us," he mutters, "but this isn't over, not yet." The final confrontation occurs near the river docks. Lonardo and Porrello meet briefly under the shadow of the warehouses. Guns are drawn, eyes locked, but neither fires immediately. The war has drained both sides, and both men understand the futility of further bloodshed. Lonardo speaks quietly. "We've lost too many men. This city bleeds for sugar, and I won't see it drown any longer." Porrello nods, grim. "Agreed, but remember, this truce is fragile. The next war could come at any time." The two men withdraw, leaving the docks eerily silent except for the distant hum of trains and the lapping of the river. By dawn, the corn-sugar war has claimed countless lives, burned warehouses, and destroyed shipments. But the survivors, Lonardo's faction, emerge with control of the majority of Cleveland's sugar trade. Power, blood, and strategy have determined the victor, while Porrello retreats to regroup and rebuild. The city slowly returns to a tense calm. Civilians whisper of explosions and fire, but the full extent of the violence is unknown. Streets are scarred, allegiance is tested, and the legacy of the corn-sugar war is cemented. Control is won through brutality, betrayal, and cunning. Lonardo, standing on the riverfront, surveys the dawn-lit docks. "This city has learned a lesson," he murmurs. "Power is blood, loyalty is currency, and the streets belong to those who survive." Chapter 8. Aftermath and Legacy. Cleveland, winter, 1926. The streets are quieter now, but the scars of the corn-sugar war remain. Burned warehouses stand as hollow reminders of the violence that once defined the city. Barrels of sugar, once fought over with bullets and explosives, are now tightly controlled by Lonardo's faction. The Porrellos have retreated, regrouping in the shadows, nursing losses, and plotting revenge. Joseph Big Joe Lonardo walks the riverfront, the cold wind biting at his face. He surveys the docks, now under his near-complete control. "We survived," he says to Frank Milano. "But the cost is written in every scar, every life lost." Milano nods. The city knows now who rules. But there are whispers. Men from outside, and even within, Remember the betrayals. Loyalty is still tested. Across town, Angelo Porrello meets with his lieutenants in a dimly lit speakeasy. The Porrellos are weakened but not broken. "We may have lost the war," he says, voice low and bitter, "but the city will remember our strength, and when the time is right, we strike again." The corn-sugar war has reshaped alliances, created new rivalries, and solidified Cleveland as a city where organized crime is both feared and unavoidable. Civilians, meanwhile, navigate a new reality. Businesses rebuild, families cautiously return to the streets, and rumors of the war's events circulate in hushed tones. Many will never know the full extent of what happened, but everyone understands one truth. The war was about more than sugar. It was about power, survival, and the ruthless ambition of men who bend the city to their will. The law attempts to intervene, but enforcement is fragmented and compromised. Bribes, threats, and intimidation ensure that justice moves slowly, if at all. The corn-sugar war has exposed vulnerabilities in both the criminal underworld and the city's institutions. Lonardo meets with trusted lieutenants in a rebuilt warehouse. "Control is ours," he says, tapping a finger on a map. "But remember, the streets never forgive weakness. Keep your men loyal, your operations tight, and your enemies in check. That's how we survive beyond the war." In the years following, the corn-sugar war becomes legend. Stories circulate about exploding warehouses, betrayals, daring ambushes, and the men who ruled through fear and strategy. Historians later note that Cleveland's bootlegging industry, and the criminal networks surrounding it, owe much of their structure and ruthlessness to the lessons learned during these bloody months. Frank Milano reflects in an interview years later, "We lost a lot of good men who trusted the wrong people. But that war, it taught us how to operate, how to survive. Cleveland learned what it meant to fight for control, and we were the ones who walked away." The corn-sugar war leaves a permanent mark on Cleveland, a city wary of shadows, alert to whispers, and deeply aware that power comes at a price. Barrels of sugar, speakeasies, and docks remain central to the underworld economy, but the lessons of fire, blood, and betrayal echo long after the gunfire ends. For Lonardo and his faction, victory comes not only in control of the trade, but in the knowledge that they navigated the deadliest months Cleveland had ever seen. For Porrello, defeat is temporary, a lesson in patience, vengeance, and the fragile nature of alliances. Cleveland, scarred yet resilient, continues to hum with industry and ambition. But under the city's surface, the war's legacy endures, in the alleys, in whispers, and in the unbroken shadow of men who would do anything to survive. The corn-sugar war may have ended, but the story of ambition, betrayal, and bloodshed is forever etched into the streets, warehouses, and memory of Cleveland.